I always like drawing the Anchorman. How now, brown cow.
How now, brown cow. How now, brown cow.
Ostrich has oddly shaped feet. The Human Torch was denied a bank loan.
That's right, dude. The Human Torch was denied a big loan. How now, brown cow.
I love that movie.
It really is good. Did you see the sequel?
Yeah,
it sucked.
It wasn't
that good.
I mean, it's just Anchorman was just. It was
its own thing.
It was.
They should have left it alone.
Absolutely.
They should have just left it alone.
Absolutely.
But I get that there's enough of the fan, or what do you call it, fanfare, or just enough of the fans that basically say like, oh, let's do a new one. Like, make another. We love Anchorman. And there's so much hype around it. I'm sure that someone at the studio was like, we can make a lot of money on this. A lot of people want to see this movie. Let's do it. Mm-hmm. What's the other one with the cops, the state troopers, Super Troopers. Super Troopers was a movie that was like, iconic, and it was just on its own. It was fantastic. And then they were like, dude, people want a second one. Let's make a second one. We can make a lot of money. And I get it. I mean, sure, make money. I'm all about making some money, especially being creative. But sometimes, like, just leave well enough alone.
Just leave it alone.
Anchorman's fine. Anchorman is fine where it is, dude.
I mean, on that area, they never made a Freddy Got Fingered 2.
Oh, right, yeah. No, yeah. And I guess some people are like, yeah, we won't do it.
Yeah. I think it's the grandfather of that type of humor.
Yeah.
Freddy Got Fingered it was different.
A little bit.
It was
some unique movies. It's funny how, when someone makes art, whether it be a photo or a song or a movie, right? Mm-hmm. And in your mind, you're like, yo, this is brilliant. Like, I'm an artist. This is brilliant. And then you release it to the public. They're like, what the fuck is this? Like, what am I watching? Or a song that's just really obscure. And you're like, I mean, I get it. But like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
Like, it's not when things just, I guess, aren't easily digestible. Mm-hmm. And not to sit and say that they have to have mass appeal, right? But there's just some things where you're just like, okay, I'm trying to be open-minded about this. Like, I'm an artist and I understand, but sometimes you're just like, huh.
To me, it's like you need that person. You need that person to take it all the way left.
Yeah.
For someone to bring it back a little bit.
Just pull it back a little bit, yeah.
But you just need to know that territory exists.
I guess that's a good point, right? Is that you have those extremes. Yeah. It's kind of like, I immediately think of like the clarity slider in Lightroom. So many people were like, yo, let me crank up the clarity, bro. Look how awesome this looks. Look at all this mid-tone contrast. Clarity, bro, clarity. And then eventually you're just like, let me pull it back. Yeah. Like, let me pull it back a lot. I used to crank like around 50, 60. Now I'm at like 5.
Yeah.
Like, just a little bit nice. Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna do intros because eventually got to do intros. Yeah. Hey everyone, welcome to the Steve Walter Photo Podcast. This is season 1. Everything is art, and today with us we have Carlos. Say hello, Carlos.
Hello, people.
Yeah. So I was about to say we go back, but like I've known you for a couple of years now. Mm-hmm. We were connected through photography through a photo meet. That was basically I think it was like the second Project Shutter photo meet. Maybe it was the third, because you were hosting it in New Haven.
It was the second. Yeah.
And that's how we first connected. Mm-hmm. I think that's the first time I met Jesse, too. Mm-hmm. And I remember meeting Jesse being like, damn, that's a young kid. Like, that's a teen. And he was a teenager at the time. He was probably 18 or 19. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. So we met through photography, and, we've been in touch and connected, obviously, ever since. Mm-hmm. So today I wanted to obviously talk about you, experiences that you've had in the past, your story, but then also leading up to a recent trip that you had, right? And then even, just moving forward where you're going to be at, because you're moving away from Connecticut soon.
For the third time.
For the third time, yeah. Which is fine, man, because like, I don't know, like, and so I'll talk about it. I actually just put in my notice at Apple.
Ooh.
Yeah, I haven't really shared any of that. And the reason I bring that up, and the reason why I made that connection of this sort of like, hey, I'm moving for the third time. And it's almost like if you move back and forth, that it's just almost like people would have this perception of like, hey, man, what's going on? It's like, I don't know, man, life changes. Like, what do you mean, what's going on? Yeah. And I think of that for myself, where it's like I've been at this job for a year, 6 years. I've been working there. And I got to a point where I just said, you know what? it's time for me to take the time. And I was only there a couple days a week. I was always part-time, which was awesome. They were amazing about that I had a really good schedule. But 3 days out of that week, out of 7, that's still a lot, you know? And photography and art, you know, this is really what I want to do. I did enjoy that job, but it's really, I want to do this. I want to free up as much time as I can to do this. And then coupled with the fact that, you know, I have a little daughter at home, I have a wife, and we have another daughter on the way. I want to make sure that I'm around for all of that stuff. So, I don't know exactly where I was going with that, but just the idea that there's this sort of outside perception. I'm sure people would be like, whoa, bro, why would you leave there? Like, that's crazy. You had this security, you had all these things. And it's like, yeah, I know. I guess my point is life isn't without its risks.
No, absolutely. The second time I left, I was working at Yale Hospital for 7 years. And to tell people, especially in New Haven, that you want to quit Yale to move to another state is absurd to them.
Right. It's like, dude, you're crazy. Like, that's what everyone is striving for right now. Like, I know so many people that are like, that when I'll tell them my mom works at Yale, yo, can she get me a job? It's like, I don't know if she'd get you a job. Like, how'd she get in there? I was like, she's been working there for like a long time. Like, over 10 years she's been working. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, so it's funny, right? Because that's one of those sought after jobs. That Sikorsky in Stratford, that's a big one, right? And I think that's great, right? Because again, when I think about this and the risks that I take, you know, I have a family, and you can't mess around with that. Like, that's not just like it sucks. It doesn't suck. It's just different. That it's not about me. It's not about me at all. It's about my daughter and my new daughter coming, right? It's about them. But still, it is also about me, right? Because wouldn't it be awesome if I could show them, hey, if you put in the time and the effort and you're driven and you're focused, pun intended, if you're focused, that you can do what you want, right? Like, wouldn't it be awesome if I could show them that? Like, that would be cool. That would be so amazing. And then now I'm happy. My wife's happy. My daughter's happy. Like, there's a good energy about that. And I've been fortunate enough in the past couple of years, over a decade now, to do something creative, because that's what makes sense to me.
I completely understand. Like, I tell people, like, me doing this, part of the reason me doing this is because of where I'm from. Yeah. So I'm from New Haven, Connecticut. Partially raised around here in Fairhaven. Yeah. You know, I know Grand Ave and Ferry very well. Yeah. So people who come from where I'm from don't have the opportunity to take these risks. Right. You know, so since I know that I have the talent and I have understanding of networking, I can take these risks and show people, hey, like, it's possible. Yeah. You know, and if anyone have a conversation with me personally, they know that I would tell them my faults. Like, there's a reason why I'm back in Connecticut. Yeah. And it's not because I want to. Right. You know, it's just I took that risk, fell on my face. Yeah. Got myself back together. Now I'm going to take another risk. Yeah. Because like, that's what life is. If you really want something, you just go and get it.
Keep doing it. And I think that's a great testament to it, right? Is that, you know, again, I'm linking it to this experience that I have currently where, and I think there's a lot of people out there that are in a similar position. That's why I bring it up, right? Where you're working a job and you don't want to work that job. You want to do photography, or you want to do something creative, whether it's music, art, photography, design, whatever it is. And you're in this position, and wouldn't it be great if you could just leave? But then the idea of, well, what if it doesn't work out? It's the fear of, well, what if? So to your point, man, I'm going to take a risk and I'm going to go for it. You know what? Didn't work out. I'm sure in your mind, you're like, hey, Carlos, I need to learn from what just happened, right? Like, that's life. That's the whole process. And we talked about that. I was talking about that with Will on the last podcast. So for those that want to listen, basically, like, it's not about your successes. It's about your mistakes. Yeah. And like, that's life. I mean, obviously as an artist, right? Because we're super critical, super analytical and judgmental and hard on ourselves. So you have to learn from those mistakes. But just even in life, that's what you have to do. So the fact that you're going back and taking another big risk, I think that's awesome. It's fantastic.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. You have to. And that's, you know, I'm saying that to you and I'm saying that to me too, right? Like, I have to take this risk of cutting some kind of safety net, because then otherwise I'm just stuck.
Yeah, no, and for a lot of my friends, like, you're the best example. Like, I don't have kids. My friends have kids, and a lot of them are stuck at where they at because they feel as though they have to do this for the child.
Yep.
And the other side of that is, well, you're also showing your child that it's okay to compromise.
Right.
It's okay to be stuck somewhere that you don't like.
Yep.
You know, and I've seen how that affects families growing up. I've seen how having a bitter dad affects the kids.
Yeah. I think that's a great, that I think is the bigger part of my mindset is that, you know what, I could have worked at Apple full time, or I could have just gotten a full time job somewhere, sitting at a desk, pushing papers that probably paid pretty well, right? I would be miserable. I would be absolutely miserable. And you want to know what? I'd rather try to exhaust all possibilities first before having to go to that position. Yeah. And I'm not sitting and saying anything negative to the people that are like, well, this is my life. It's like, hey man, that's okay, but you have choices. Yeah. You do. And some of them are risky. And I guess that's kind of the overall point of this, is that you should want to take risks. Yeah. For yourself, right? To kind of prove to yourself who you are, but then also to, in this case for me now, to kind of show my family, like, it's okay to take risks. Look, man, I'm fortunate enough where the worst case scenario, everything, shit hits the fan, right? I could go to my parents and say, hey, I need a place to crash. I'm fortunate enough to have that, right? Yeah. Not everyone does, so I understand that. So some people will say, well, I don't have a choice. No, you do have a choice. It's just more risk, right? So I don't want to sit and say, like, oh, it's easy for me to make this decision. No. Dude, I've been thinking about this for 18 months at least, man.
Yeah, I remember you.
Since, I mean, basically when right around when Scarlett was born, it was like, hey, I need, like, something needs to change because I need to be around more. And that was really the base of it, is like, I want to be home with I want to see my daughter more, man. Yeah. We just hung out all day Saturday and most of the day Sunday. It was dope. It was so, dude, it was just so great because I have to put so much time into this photography, or anyone, any entrepreneur or any business owner. You have to do that. So then, you know, I would only see her for a little bit at night before bedtime, and like, we didn't really get to hang out. And it's dope, man. It's just, yeah, that's awesome. So anyway, yeah, man. So where are you moving to?
So I'm moving back to Tampa, Florida.
Dope.
You know, I'm moving in a week, so that means I'm like right at the edge of it being extremely hot.
Oh yeah, huh?
So that part sucks, but you know,
yeah, you're going from like 50 degrees to like 80.
Right now it's 80, and then it's gonna go to like the 90s with like 100% humidity, and yeah, it's gonna suck.
Yeah, that's gonna suck, dude.
I hate Florida summer, but you know, you just gotta take the good with the bad.
It is what it is. I lived in Gainesville for like 2 years. That's Central Florida, so it's not Tampa, right? Actually, I don't even know where Tampa is, because
Gainesville is considered northern Florida.
Oh, is that northern? Okay,
Tampa
it's not central.
Is central Florida.
Okay.
And then southern is like Miami, Fort Lauderdale.
Right. Okay. All right. So yeah, even then, Tampa is still more south than Gainesville for sure. Because I remember there were some days in the summer. Yeah, it sucked. But you know, it was, you know, you're hanging out in Florida. Like, Florida's dope. Florida's cool, man. I remember the sunsets, man. That was like by far my favorite, just because of the amount of moisture that was constantly there, the cloud formations, and just the colors that you'd see. It was dope, man. Florida sunsets are tight. Yeah. Cool. So is there anything specific that's pulling you to Tampa? I mean, you have family there, friends there, connections there.
So very minimal family. Not in Tampa at all.
Oh, okay.
So, but in Florida. Tampa is where my life changed.
Okay.
So I have a different set of friends in Tampa. I have a different network in Tampa.
Yeah.
Tampa is where I learned how to shoot photography.
Oh, word.
I was fortunate to have a mentor, which a lot of photographers don't have.
Yep.
So I worked under my homeboy, Greg Byron.
Yeah.
Mean Joe Photo on IG.
Mean Joe Photo? Cool. But his name's Byron.
Yeah.
Me and Joe, it bothers me so much, man. Yeah. When people have Instagram handles that don't align with their name at all. I mean,
no, he doesn't care at all.
No,
he has no care about IG at all. Like, he been shooting since a little kid, he says. So this is before.
So he's an old school. He's a film old school guy.
Well, no, he's only a year older than me.
Oh, really?
But but he shoots film. But
okay. Dope.
He's just been doing it for a long time. So the IG stuff isn't even part of his marketing.
Okay, right. He just,
know what I'm saying?
Yeah, there's not.
That's just his spaces to have fun.
Cool.
But yeah, so I worked under him, and by working with him, I got plugged into numerous situations. So I have a network in Florida. So when I came back, I tried to do the same thing I was doing in Florida. Wasn't working here.
Yeah.
So it's like I can stay here and revamp how I've been doing things, or I can just go back to Florida, eat the shit for a month or two.
Yeah.
Because I'm gonna be broke.
Right. Sure.
And then, but get back to how things were.
Get in the groove.
Get in the groove. Start working back with him again.
Yeah.
And probably get a little part time just for the time being,
sure.
And then just get my own name started.
Sure.
And have and get back to it.
Yeah, and I think that's when people talk about the grind, like that's what it is. Like you're gonna be in the shit for a little bit. Yep. And I'm sure that there are people that have been in the shit for a while, right? And you're like, well, when is there going to be a change? And if you recognize that, right, being here, you're like, hey, look, man, I put in this effort and it's for whatever reason not connecting. If I know I have the ability to go to a place where I have a pretty good odds of things kind of connecting and linking up, like, it makes sense to do that, especially if it allows you to do what you want to do. And it's not just like, well, I have to go do this. Like, I got to go work this corporate accounting gig down in Tampa. It's like, no, man, don't go to Tampa. You can get a corporate accounting gig right over here, man. We'll give you, No, it's, I want to pursue my passion. So let me go to a place where there's opportunity. And that's, risks, man. That's it. Right. And I think it's cool that you said, I assume, like, you're talking about a mentor, right? I assume that he's older, right? Yeah. Just because. And I think that's a good point, is that your mentor doesn't have to be significantly older than you, right? It could literally be a dude who's a year older than you. I mean, in many ways, I would consider Matt a mentor for me. In many ways. And I think, he's like 3 years older than me. And it's just funny how, like, we were before we started recording, we were talking about skateboarding. We were talking about back in the day. So, like, when I was a teenager, I remember seeing Matt, because he was one of the older kids, him and all his buddies were riding BMX. And I remember seeing, like, them around. And I remember, it's so funny how, like, I have this tiny memory of him, but I remember him being like an old kid. It was just like, oh man, he's cool. He's an old kid. And then, like, we grow up and the ages start to level out and you're like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah. Oh, you're a cool dude. Like, right on. Dope. And then becomes, a mentor where now I'm able to grab knowledge and experience and opportunities, right? And just build on my skill set through someone else's experiences. So it's cool. And I love being able to, I'm sure you do too, where it's like you have the ability, like, if I can share this knowledge with you, let me do that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And then going back to Matt's a funny guy because, like, when you look at his work, very professional. Yeah. He shoots for a medium format. He's like, oh my God, this guy. Yeah. This guy's real serious. You meet Matt, he's the coolest guy. He's like, oh yeah, I don't give a fuck about that.
Right. Yeah. Laid back. Yep. Just a good dude. Cool guy. Yeah. Cool guy. That's it.
You never think that.
It's funny, right? And especially too, he's he's had, BMX was like his whole life. So if you didn't know, right, that was it at all, like, you'd meet the guy, but then when he's like, oh, I used to ride BMX professionally. It's like, oh, okay, cool. That makes sense. Yeah. Like, okay, now I get.
Besides the fact he's like 6'7", but yeah, it makes sense.
Right. I do need to get him on here because it's funny, like, he keeps coming up. I keep talking about him more and more in the podcast. But what I want to do is definitely have him on. So for everyone listening, you will eventually get to audibly, and for those watching on YouTube, and for those that don't know, this is on YouTube. For you guys watching, you will be able to see Matt as well.
Yeah. The infamous.
Infamous. Dope. So this guy, I already forgot his name.
Greg.
See, I wanted to say Joe because of his Instagram, but no, it's Greg. Yeah. Okay. Because I remember that. So he showed you. Did he show you? Did he open you up to photography, or was that just kind of where you started getting like a groove with photography?
So my I guess initial start with photography was I bought myself a 40D, which at the time was old because this was just before the 70D came out.
Oh wow! Okay,
so I bought a 40D.
Yeah, that was old time.
Yeah. And,
damn, Carlos.
And so that's how I learned, like, triangle, ISO,
triangle. Yeah, dude.
All that stuff.
Yep.
And then so I had a portfolio, I guess you can say.
Yeah.
So when I met him, he was just into the fact of how into I was, and like how fascinated I was into photography.
Yeah.
That's why he was interested in me.
Kind of took you under his wing.
So I mean, one of the first times he's like, show me top 10 photos.
Okay.
All right, cool. Boom, boom, got together, showed it him. He ripped all of them to shreds. He's like, well, this sucks. You gotta change this. If you shot it like this, if you did it like this, like just broke it down of how I could have done all these shots better.
Fun, huh?
And he's like, don't worry, I'm gonna show you how to get better.
Yeah,
and
that's cool. That's cool. And that's man, Will and I were talking about that, and it seems like there are these just common themes, right? And in art and everything, like you need someone who's going to tear you a new asshole.
Yeah,
you just do, and not necessarily to tear you a new asshole, just to tear you a new asshole, but like, hey, I'm gonna tear you a new asshole, but I'm gonna help you get better.
Yeah,
like let me help you get better.
Mm-hmm.
And especially if you see someone that's like, yo, you're driven, but you're just missing the mark on a couple things here. Take a look at this. What do you think about this? And let's explore this. So that's cool. So he was helpful then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice.
So that's pretty much how I got started. Like, and then just seeing just how hard it is. Like, there's a different level when you're a freelance photographer. Like, there's no one there to tell you that you're doing something wrong if you're doing something right.
Right.
There's no, like, if you don't get enough hours, you can't blame your manager now.
Nope.
Like,
no. Right.
So
right.
So at one point I was staying with him, and so I saw the work ethic. I saw him get up 5, 6 in the morning, editing stuff, calling clients back, emailing clients back. He would take me with him to meetings, see what he would talk about.
Yeah.
How he would break down pricing. So like I got to see it firsthand of like photography is fun.
Yep.
Making art is fun.
Sure.
But when it comes to business,
yeah,
it's a whole different ball game.
And I think that there's a lot of people, I say people, the photography community that sees the fun stuff. Again, Will and I were talking about this. It's so funny how it's like, but again, there are these common themes, and it's clear that that's the case, man, is that, yeah, being freelance, being your own boss, it's fun. It's awesome. It's amazing. You get to make your own schedule, and it's so cool, and it's great, but you also have to make your own schedule, and you are your own boss, and you have to get the work, right? You blame you and only you when you don't get that work, and it's a business first.
Yep.
And I said this, I'm sure I've said this before, but if I haven't, I'll say it again, is that it's, if you're an okay photographer and a great businessman, you're going to do well. Mm-hmm. If you're a fantastic, phenomenal photographer, but not great at business, you're not going to do that well. Mm-hmm. And that's just the nature of it. You'll sometimes see people that are crushing it, and you're like, yo, their photography sucks. Doesn't matter. They're crushing it. Mm-hmm. You can't hate on them. I mean, you can, but you're just wasting time. Don't do that, right? You got to give them the credit where it's, if you're putting in that hustle, you're putting in that drive, you're making images, and that's what it's about. And that is obviously the fun part, right? When you get to make those images, but it is the emailing, the calls, the bookkeeping, all of that stuff. And it
also gets really fun when you can make the images that you actually want to.
Right.
Because you still got to go through that phase of,
you got to play those cover songs, as it were, right? Like your band's like, yo, man, you got to play a couple cover songs, dude. You got to play that Beatles tune, right? Everybody wants to hear that Beatles, so you got to play that top 40. Mm-hmm. And then here's my original. Yeah. And then people are like, oh, damn, that original is pretty good. You're like, I know, right? Yep. But every now and then you're still going to get, well, we need that Beatles song. You got to give us that. Yeah, we got to put people in the seats. We got to start selling some drinks, man. Like, I don't care about your stuff. Yeah, man, it's funny how that's just the nature of it, right?
Yeah.
Is you take the gigs that will get you there. No different than any other artist. I was talking about this with my friend Raquel. She's a tattoo artist. They got to do flash art, man. Like, that's where you start.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, I want that flower on the wall. Cool. Here you go. Mindless. Done. Here you go. Enjoy your day. Versus like, hey, here's this thing that I drew. What do you think about this? And being able to have this custom, beautiful piece of art.
Another a tattoo artist that I'm a fan of, and his name was Maya Bailey.
Okay.
So the way he does it is, you tell him his concept, you have a conversation, and then he would literally have like a Sharpie and draw it on your arm.
Yeah, I love that.
And then he'll tattoo it.
Right.
So it's like that's even like another level of that.
Dude. I was talking about that with my buddy Mike, who was on the podcast, Manzanisi, and it's this intimacy, and now it's trust, and it's all of that. Like, hey, we'll sit down. It's like, okay, cool. I'm going to draw on your arm, and you're going to look at it in the mirror. And you're going to be like, yes or no. And if you say yes, cool. Nobody else has this. Nobody else will have this. Like, I literally have only drawn it on your arm. That's awesome.
Yep. And it fits the contour of your arm because I actually drew it.
Yeah.
It wasn't on paper transfer. Just literally.
Right.
Bam.
Literally on your body. This was 100% customized for you. And that's cool, man. And when you get to have that, as a photographer, I mean, I'm trying to think of an analogy, but you can't. I mean, it's kind of showing up on the fly and being like, hey, here is this environment. Here's this space. I'm going to capture it as it is for you, no matter what it is. And I think that's the importance of building up a portfolio, right? Build up a portfolio of the things that you want to do.
Yep.
Or there's even a combination of build up a portfolio of the things that you want to do, but also just kind of showcasing. For me, I like to showcase versatility. I pride myself on my versatility in that I don't just shoot the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over again. I recognize that there is a strategy, a marketing strategy to that. But what I don't want is to just be a one-trick pony, as it were. Not to say that that's a negative thing, right? Again, like I said, there's a marketing strategy. I talk about the Brandon Wolfel guy. He has the same shots. They're basically all the same. And eventually you see him kind of drift here and there, but for the most part, it's the same look. And that's great. Everyone's following him, and he gets a lot of recognition. But it always in the back of my mind, and I think it was like the second episode of the podcast, I was like, I want to reach out to him. I still never reached out to him, just to be like, hey, man, like, how's that? Is that working? Like, are you crushing it? Like, I got to think the dude's crushing it, right? But it's not always the case. We've talked about this, right? Doesn't matter how many followers you have, man. Someone could have 100,000 followers and still being like, oh, yo, can I get an assistant gig? And you're like, assistant gig? What are you talking about, man? Aren't you crushing it right now?
You popping in these streets.
Right,
like,
right.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, wouldn't you be doing awesome? Yo, look how many followers you have, bro. What's your influencer game about? But it's not always the case, man. It's like, hey, you just have followers. What is that doing for you? How can you take that and make it something, right?
But it goes back to business and art. Like, he's just showing you his highlights.
Yep.
You know, there's nothing that says that when a client speaks to him, he's giving those type of images to the client.
Right. You're right. No, he's showing this is what I want to show everyone. But who knows? The images that he's actually creating, they might be reaching out to him and saying like, "Hey, we need corporate headshots." He's like, "Cool, yeah, I got you," and he's crushing it, but doesn't show anyone that. Yeah,
I'd like if Facebook contacts him, he's not giving those type of images.
No. I mean, again, unless it's for a very specific campaign where it's like we have to show these like whimsical, like pastel, blurry photos. Yep. Cool, we got a guy. Yep. Versus like, hey, no, we need you to make some cover songs. Like, can you do some covers? Cool, we got it. Yeah. And if nothing else, if it puts his work in front of people's eyes, then he's winning that business game, right? Yeah. But yeah, no, it's an interesting thing when you think about social media and marketing, and that's a tool, that's a business tool, and it should be used, at least try to be used as a business tool. Yeah. So you had the 40D, you're shooting with that.
Oh, okay,
yeah. Yeah, you upgrade or you transfer.
No. The 40D breaks down on me within 6 months.
Oh shit!
So
that sucks.
So I was cameraless for a while.
Okay.
And then I moved to Florida. My homeboy's girlfriend had a Nikon.
Okay.
7000, 7100, I believe.
Something like that. Yeah.
So I use hers. because she wasn't. She fell off of photography. She's a makeup artist now.
Okay, cool.
So like an actual professional makeup artist.
Dope. It's funny that you say that. Like, can we just talk about that for a second? We'll come back to your friend who's a makeup artist. She borrowed her camera. I just want to remember where we were. But it's funny how you say actual makeup artist, right? Yeah. Because everyone's a makeup artist, right? Yeah. Everyone's a photographer. Everyone's a producer. Like so many people, and it's awesome that so many people are trying to find this talent. But I was even looking at a girl today. It was a girl, she does makeup, go figure. But I was looking at her work, and she posted a new tutorial. And I was like, cool, I'm down for tutorials. And like, I just wanted to watch it just to see what she made. And it literally looked like everything else. Mm-hmm. And I sat and I thought to myself, I was like, I've already seen this.
Yeah.
Even though I genuinely didn't really have any interest, and it's not like I'm going to do any makeup or anything like that, but I was curious just to see the production because, you know, I create content, so I want to just be exposed to other things. And it looked like everything else. It's a ring light with a background that's kind of shimmery and shiny. And I'm like, oh, okay, I've seen this before. and it's, you know, obviously it's the personality of the person. And she was extremely pleasant. And, you know, I wasn't turned off by the fact that like maybe she had an annoying voice or her attitude or anything like that. No, and the editing was nice. But it's just one of those things where it's like everyone is a whatever. So,
so like I have a love-hate with stuff like this. So before I got into photography, I did audio engineering.
Ah, dope. I didn't know that.
I interned at Horizon Studio in West Haven.
Yeah.
With Vic Steffens.
Okay.
As the head engineer. And so I worked under him, moved to Florida.
Yeah.
And had a hard time finding a studio to just intern. I didn't even actually to work for them, to intern for them.
But just to hang out, not get paid, and just help.
Yeah. And it was a lot of, oh, you know, we'll get back to you, but first we look at people who went to school for it.
Ah, okay.
But, and then they'll sneak in, well, we also offer a class. It's about $6,000.
$6,000. Hey, we're looking for people that have a degree or you to pay us $6,000. Okay. All right. I mean, that's a model, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. But the benefit of that is not everyone can call themselves audio engineer.
Right.
Whereas stuff like photography and makeup artists, it's easy. You can buy a Rebel and be like, yeah, I'm a photographer.
When you're a photographer.
Let me shoot this. Let me shoot that. Yeah. And so it's like, so I'm not sure on what side of the fence I am when it comes to that situation.
You're right. That's a good point because it's cool that anyone can be a makeup artist and it's cool that anyone can be a photographer. I mean, I wasn't a photographer and now I am a photographer. Mm-hmm. So it's like, that's awesome. I love that. And I would never want to tell someone not to do that. Like, obviously pursue it. But then when you have to almost verify to say like, well, she's actually a makeup artist, like a certified makeup artist, went to cosmetology, right? Cosmetology school, has a license and knows what she's doing.
Has that portfolio on top of that.
Right.
Clients.
Yep. Right. And you know, does the grind, I'm sure, probably does wedding makeup, probably does prom makeup, you know, all the stuff that's just like, oh, this isn't very creative. But, you know, you see just that flip side of it where it's like, hey, I want to make a tutorial on how to do this type of makeup. And it's funny, even when I see some totally different person, but like when I see some and what they're trying to do is emulate what they see done. And the thing that gets me is the contouring, right? The cheekbone highlight. That's basically they make the top of their cheekbones just sparkle. And someone please send me an email or send me a message because I don't understand that because when I look at that imagery, I immediately think like, I got to do a lot of retouching now because unless that thing is dialed in perfectly, what's going to happen is when light hits it, it's going to get overexposed. It's going to get blown out. So now what I have to do is as a photographer, I have to dial down my exposure to make sure that doesn't get clipped in the highlights, but then my overall exposure gets too dark. Like, so for me, from a logistical standpoint, I'm sitting there thinking about, I'm like, that's not practical, man. Like for your ring light, when you do it, like, and you're moving around and there's this glitter shimmer, cool, that's awesome. But for me, man, that's hard now. I got to do all this retouching, dude. Don't give me retouching work. Although I have actually had to develop a technique that lets me do that on that specific scenario. So I guess there's a pro there. Yeah. But anyway, so you borrow her camera, 77 or 7000 Nikon, and you're using that.
Yeah. Started getting started doing my own stuff.
Yeah.
People started telling me I was actually good at it.
Yeah.
So I started my hand at getting gigs. Yep. Mostly events.
Cool. Yeah.
And then I was just at an event, just chilling. It was skate park in Tampa had an anniversary for their restaurant that they have. And yeah, I saw at the time was this guy with a big afro and a beard who was carrying a 5D, and I was like, oh, that's a fancy camera.
Yeah.
So I talked to him. He ended up being Greg, and I ended up working for him.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much how that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So you just kind of take this interest that you have, and again, you kind of push through. Your camera breaks, and you could have been like, well, that's that. Mm-hmm. But you say, no, all right. I'm like, oh, you got that. Oh, let me use that camera. Can I keep it? Yeah. And then you keep shooting, and then you just progress. So I know you're also big into shooting film. So yes. How did you get into film when starting with digital?
Because I like challenges.
Ah, nice. Good answer. Good answer. Because photography is problem solving. In most scenarios, it's problem solving.
Yeah. I mean, that's
why I like it too.
What also made it easier, I guess, for me was the fact that I used to do audio. So audio is almost the same thing.
There's definitely some connections. I've had some analogies created between the two mediums for sure.
When you shoot, instance, when you record on vinyl, you can crank this shit up because vinyl is going to automatically compress it.
Okay.
Film, you can overexpose it 2 or 3 stops because film is going to automatically
bring it back,
dull down the highlights,
or have it recovered. Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then there's no difference. There's the highs, there's the whites.
Yep.
There's the lows, there's the blacks.
Yep.
And, it's
you don't want to clip either of them.
Exactly.
Yeah, dude.
So it's a lot of analogies when it comes to photography and mixing.
When you think about the compression, right? Like, what's your dynamic range? Like, what are your frequencies? Like, where are you? Where can you boost your mids anymore? Or no, that's getting a little too muddy right now. Your shadow tones are getting a little too muddy. Like, you got to keep it all clean.
Yep.
Yeah, you got to get that tone curve dialed in, man. Just like with your EQ, you got to get it all dialed in. Yeah, it's basically the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. So,
audio and photo, same thing. Literally no different. And it's funny because when you think about that, or even, you got a RAW file, you got a WAV file, you got an MP3, you got a JPEG. Like, it's kind of the same type of thing right, for your mind to go to film and be like, oh, this is audio. Yeah. That's kind of cool that you can immediately just make that connection because they are so closely related. One you use your ears, one you use your eyes. Yeah. So that's dope.
But yeah, so I got into film.
Yeah.
Purely just the challenge of it. Like, you don't know what you're shooting. Like, my first few rolls was just trying to get 36 shots that came out right. Yeah, right. So I spent a lot of money just trying to be good at film. Yeah.
And there is, I have I won't say love-hate because I don't have a hatred towards it. But I don't have a love-hate. It's just I'm sort of indifferent about film, I guess. Like, I appreciate it. I think it's awesome. I think it's cool. But then I also think it's a waste of time. I think it's silly, and I think it's impractical. Like, but right, cool. I don't disagree. Yeah. I want to do, so I started season 2 of the podcast, which is basically going to be topic based. And one of the topics that I want to talk about is film digital. Like, I would love to get some people in here that are film, and I'm kind of more of a digital, so I'd probably fill that space. But just to have that conversation, because it is an interesting one, I think. And again, that probably connects. Oh yeah, it definitely connects directly to audio, right? Like, do you record on an iPad, or do you record with analog, tube amps? It's like, no, I use an iPad. It's like, no, I use tube amp. It's like, this doesn't sound the same. It's like, it sounds fine, dude. What are you talking about? The iPad sounds amazing.
And even with that, like, like when it comes to audio, digital now can't surpass analog.
Yeah.
But it's the characteristic that people like.
Right.
People like the pops. People like the grain.
Like the grain. Oh shit, it's the same, dude. You know? It's the same. You're right. Exactly. They like the vignetting. Yeah, they like the. Oh, that's totally it. The weird distortion and the color. You know. And, yeah.
That's all it is, because just like digital, you know, a phase 1, 100 megapixels. That's
right.
That's way clearer than any Hasselblad.
Right.
Or film Hasselblad or
right.
Or Mamiya.
Right.
Medium format, large format, but people like the characteristic of film.
Yeah.
To me, that's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Like, to me shooting film on my personal work is more like training.
Yeah. Okay.
Like, you know, like I played a bunch of sports growing up, so it's like this is no different than me shooting 100 jumpers.
Just doing drills.
You know, yeah, exactly. It's no different than me wearing a weighted vest when I work out.
Yeah.
It makes me a quicker photographer. It makes me think faster.
I guess that's a good point, right? You start to become conditioned because you have a better sense of your settings. And as a digital photographer, so when I teach classes and workshops specifically on lighting, I've been doing that. And even one of the things that I talk about and I challenge people is to say, okay, when you go into a room, guess your settings. Mm-hmm. Just guess them, just like you would with film, because you would have to know it. It's not a guess. It's like, oh, I know what this exposure is, right? Because if you think back in the 50s and the 60s, like that was it. Maybe you had a light meter and you could do that, but chances are not everyone did, right? Especially if you were an amateur. So that's one of the things that I encourage people to do, and I try to do that myself all the time. And then I'll look at an image, you know, because I'm spoiled with digital. I take a picture, I look at the back, and I say, okay, cool. It's not where I want it to be. How far off is it? Is it 2/3 of a stop? Is it 1/3 of a stop? And then I'll make that correction, and then I'll get it. I'll go, cool, I was on point, nice. Yeah. And now I can start to have a better guess or a better judgment. And I guess that's what this is basically doing, is putting you in a place to go, oh, I know what settings I need, because I have to get it on film, so I know I can get it in digital within 2 shots. Yeah. That's dope.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not one of those, like, I don't romanticize film. Yeah. I'm not one of those, like,
okay.
Like, oh, it slows me down, and like, whatever.
I mean, it does, and it's cool, and there is. I understand. Nice. That's why, like, I think it's like, that's why I think it's stupid, but I also think it's amazing. Like, I'm so much in the middle.
And Will, being the person that he is,
sure,
always says, "Oh, so you shoot out of focus."
Out of focus, yeah.
Just a dick.
Yeah, that's Will for sure. Hey, what's up? I'm Steve. I shoot film. Oh, cool. So you shoot blurry photos. Dope. And you want to know what? Man. He's not wrong.
He's not.
He's not wrong. Like,
I have plenty out of focus.
So many blurry photos, and I see people will post that, and I'm like, bro, this is blurry. Yeah. Like, that's blurry. And here's another thing too, and I think I brought it up. Not to harp on film, right? But there is something, right, when you talk about the romanticism of it, or you talk about I don't even know what it is. When people make this connection to film, I think it is because it's romanticized. A lot of things go out the window, like composition. Composition just seems to completely go out the window with photographers that I've seen work in their digital, and they understand the fundamentals of composition, just the rule of thirds alone. Mm-hmm. But then when they go to film, all that goes out the window, it seems, because what I see is like these amateur snapshots, and I'm like, bro, why are you treating that any different at all? Like, I'm sure with your phone, you snap pics the way that you would snap them with your DSLR. Mm-hmm. Why is it with a film camera you forget all of those fundamentals? And it seems so bizarre to me. And, you know, I'm not going to be the guy, like, I'm not necessarily, not to call out Will, but I wouldn't be like Will to be like, how come you're doing this real differently? Like, why did you post this really blurry photo? Like, wouldn't you post a sharp photo? It's like, hey, it's a bummer you missed the shot, but like, you missed the shot. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Yeah, so it's an interesting thing, but okay, so that's interesting to me too, because, you know, in my mind, someone rolls up with a film camera, it's like, oh, here's this hipster rolling up with a film camera, like, okay, cool. And to you, it's like, no, man, this is me, like, refining my skill set. Yeah. That's dope. I like that, man. Yeah. That's cool. So you said you did sports. I didn't know you did sports. What kind of sports did you play?
So officially, I've only done basketball and baseball.
Okay.
But just hanging around the streets, football, basketball, baseball. Are they inline skating?
Oh yeah, dude. Rollerblading, dude.
Rollerblading.
Nice.
A skateboard.
You were skating, right? Yeah, you must have, because we were talking about that.
A snowboard.
Dope.
I tried BMX, but that was the shortest tenure of all of them.
Yeah. Hurt your ankles a lot when you try doing some of that shit. Yeah, you get beat up on BMX, man.
That's pretty much it.
All right, so I got a question for you. So this past Easter, almost every Easter for the past, 3-4 years, I end up playing football with my nephews. Mm-hmm. So right now they are currently 11 and 13. So they're getting bigger. And the 13-year-old's pretty tall. The 11-year-old's a little bit shorter. But the 13-year-old's like, he's a thin dude, but he's getting tall, right? Mm-hmm. So basically I bring that up because, we used to just be able to block the ball when they would try to quarterback. So the reason I bring this up is because growing up as a kid, we used to play street ball, right? You just play touch ball, right? And you would normally do, we had 3 people, right? So there was a, what we call automatic QB. So like there was just one quarterback, and then you would basically just kind of like rotate. Everyone would rotate being quarterback, and you would take turns and you'd all play together. So I'm sitting there and I'm playing with our nephews, right? And every year they challenge us. And it's me and my brother versus these 2 kids. So it's literally just like, we're going to dominate you. Like we're going to crush you. Yeah. We are faster. Well, I'm starting to slow down a little bit, but arguably a little bit faster, definitely more powerful. Like I could throw a ball further than you can. And just taller. Yeah, just taller. Like I can block you so easily. So they challenge us because they want to play. All right, cool. So they have to try and find unique ways to win. And basically what they're doing is they're trying to like call in these like official rules. I'm like, bro, we're playing in the front yard with trees and rocks and hills. There's a giant there's a slope from one end zone to the other. Mm-hmm. You can't start sitting here talking about safety. Like, no, man, you don't. And it's so funny, man. Like, the reason I bring this up is I'm asking you, like, when you play touch ball, you're not playing pro rules. Nah. Like, you play street rules. Yeah. I'm trying to teach these kids this, like, dude, street rules. And they're like, no, man, that's not it. It's just so funny how, like, I was like, where in your mind are you completely disconnected? And maybe it's because when I was a kid, like, I didn't care about football. Like, I didn't watch football. Yeah. I liked playing it. But even the guy that we played with, he watched football. He was into football. He played football, and we still played street rules. I don't know, man. Sorry, that's just me kind of going off on a tangent with these little kids. I'm like, bro, he's literally like calling up like, no, you can, dude. So here's what he did. I'm going to give an example. He threw the ball. We had the kickoff. No, what did we do? We kicked off to them. He caught the ball. He threw it at us. He threw it at my brother's chest. It bounced off of his chest. He picked it up and ran it and said that was okay to do. I'm like, okay, even if for whatever reason in pro rules, I'm like, bro, you caught the ball, you threw it forward at his chest. It dropped. He said it was a fumble, or I forget what the hell he called what it was. I'm like, dude, you dropped the ball. You got rid of the ball. End of play. Sorry, I'm venting to you about this because you literally
I feel the emotion in it.
You briefly brought up that you played football. Sorry, dude. You're like, I didn't even officially play football. Okay, Steve, we get it. Anyway, moving right along, Carlos.
I understand.
Sorry, I clearly needed to vent that. So yeah, for those that experience, these young kids that are trying to play by pro rules. I mean, it's even the same with like baseball or wiffle ball, man. It's just like, yeah, dude, like, yeah, the foul line's somewhere over there. Like, it was good enough. We all agree it was a foul. Okay, it was a foul. Like, shut up about your pro rules. It was a foul ball. Let's just pitch it again, dude. Like, moving right along. Mm-hmm. So sports, photography. Do you play any instruments? Do you play any music?
Kind of.
What do you play?
My parents wanted me to play piano, so I have very short spurts of it. So I played it in middle school. Yeah. For a couple months, quit. Played it in high school for a couple months, quit. And then I went to audio engineering school, so I had to take a class. Right. For also, but it's just I just never had the patience to sit down for that long.
Just never clicked with you.
Yeah. But like music's always been in my family. My dad's side of the family, my grandfather plays guitar and a bunch of Peruvian instruments. My dad's Peruvian.
Yeah.
And then my grandmother sings, my dad and my aunt sings, and I have 3 or 4 uncles that play guitar also.
Oh, dope. So it's in the blood.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
And then my mom just Puerto Rican. They just music.
It's
Like,
just like my mom's Puerto Rican. Done.
Yeah, it's like,
yeah, you know that there's music there, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Just want to make sure you were aware of how Puerto Ricans work.
Yeah. Everyone's a musician when Christmas comes. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, that's awesome. Awesome.
So music's always been a part of my life. I think that's why I gravitated towards audio.
Yeah, for sure.
Initially.
Yeah.
You know?
So that's cool that you at least have the ability to kind of make your way around a piano, I'm sure, to some extent. Yeah. So you mentioned that your dad's Peruvian. You were just in Peru, right?
Yes.
How was that, dude?
It was an interesting experience. So
okay.
It's been 15 years since I've been to Peru.
I was just about to ask. Okay.
That time, I stood there for a month and a half.
Okay.
By myself.
Okay.
So now I went back for 10 days. But yeah, now I'm older. Like,
right.
I'm 31
15
now.
years, dude. Yeah, you were a teenager. You were a young buck, 16.
So even though, you know, the stories my dad told me and being there previously, I knew how to more or less navigate through Peru because it isn't really a tourist place.
Yeah.
Certain places like Cusco is where Machu Picchu is, so you'll see a lot of tourists up there.
Sure.
Lima is a place that I stood at this time around, and it's a capital, so you might see some tourists there also.
Yeah, makes sense.
But with that being said, it's still a very, very different environment.
Yeah. Huh?
Like, I mean, I did see a KFC, but that's
okay. Like that's it. That's the extent of it. but there was a KFC, but otherwise, you're talking dirt roads. You're talking rural. Yeah.
So I went mostly still in Lima, which is the capital.
Okay.
And then I went to where my dad is from. So the city is called Huancayo. Okay. My dad's from a town outside of it called Bucara, I believe it's called.
Okay.
So I visited both places.
Gotcha.
Huancayo is like, my cousin likes to say, it's a big city in spirit. So it's pretty much the location where all the merchants from the farms from outside of town come into to sell their stuff.
Gotcha.
So it's kind of city-like, but it's still pretty much country.
Yeah, okay.
Like that's where you see dirt roads and
because I saw the photos that you were posting. That's why I mentioned that.
Yeah. So that's where you see like the dirt roads and the madness of driving in a third world country.
Dude, I bet. There's no rules, right? Like it's just
there's no lanes.
Just don't hit someone, but do whatever you want. Just don't hit people. Like that's much. Okay. That's nuts, man.
And, so being Huancayo was another one. It's like a lot of places don't have hot water, so my bath my shower was having a bucket full, 3/4 filled with cold water, and then them boiling 2 pots of water to pour inside of it to make it hot.
Wow.
And then me scooping it, putting it over my head. I forgot.
Yeah.
It's audio.
Yeah.
Put it over my head.
Yes.
Then washing myself, then scooping it again, put it over my head, putting it over my head.
Right.
So it's a different world, and but on a deeper level, like this is where my dad is from.
Right. There's a connection there.
So if it's like this in 2018, imagine how it was in the 50s.
You're right, man. Yeah. That's a good call. Right. So if you want to talk about the grind, right, or just struggles, right? Mm-hmm. I'm sure your dad went through some shit.
Yeah,
without a doubt.
And my dad was my grandmother was a single parent because my grandfather's a musician. Okay. So he went around, he thought it a little bit. No, he's a musician.
Sure. You're touring, yeah.
So
he's a musician. Yeah.
and what else? So he grew up like that. And like I said, Puraca is a town outside of Huancayo.
Okay.
Pucara is a town outside of Huancayo. So that's even more
country.
Yeah. Like I'm walking around, I'm seeing like oxes and pigs and chickens and
just
like crops,
just wandering.
Just wandering.
Yeah, that's nuts.
Half done houses. And also, all the houses there are cement or mud.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
that's a different world.
It's a completely different world.
And it's nuts, man, because I wanted to talk about it and I reference it because, the images that you were just posting in your Instagram stories, they were gorgeous. They're beautiful. They're beautiful. And not only just, obviously, the capturing the time of the day and the composition, but just like when you look at that, it's I'm like connected now. I'm like thinking National Geographic. Like that's where when you're posting these, I'm brought to a different place. Yeah. Like you're transmitting this image in real time of this world that I have no connection to, and that's what makes it so amazing. And then even just the landscape, man. I mean, unlike anything, I'm just rolling mountains, rolling green mountains for days. It's nuts.
So Lima is sea level.
Okay.
Well, my dad is from the mountains. Okay. So it's more or less like 3,300 miles above sea level.
Whoa.
So I'm high up there.
Whoa.
So, but going there, you have to go on mountains that's higher than the town. So there's times when I looked out my window and it's snowing.
Whoa, that's nuts.
And then it comes
and
back
then
down.
You descend,
And so it's like it's my dad's farm is surrounded by mountains.
Wow.
There's no you can't look a direction without seeing a mountain.
With mountain, yeah.
And it's insane. And I also got a terrible headache, the worst headache I've ever had in my life when I got to Huancayo.
You must have.
Because of the altitude.
Yeah, the altitude. Yeah, man.
The worst headache I felt in my life.
How nuts is that? Like little things like that. You're like, oh, I'll go anywhere in the world. It's like, no, you won't, man. Like you're going to be hurting. Mm-hmm. Literally compression on your skull is going to be uncomfortable, let alone the breathing and just, I'm sure a lot of that stuff, right?
Yeah.
The mobility.
I walked up 2 steps. I'm like,
how funny is that? And you're a fit dude. Like, how funny is that? That like that crazy. Happens, and you're like, shit. This is literally altitude's going to bring me down. Altitude. So Tampa heat's nothing, right? It's like, dude, sea level, cool. I'm good, man. I'll deal with a little bit of heat.
Yeah.
Altitude, nah, bro.
It's not. This is not what it's at.
Yeah.
Well,
so the experience was interesting.
Yes, I mean, just for cultural reasons, and
going back there,
also because that's where most of my dad's family is.
Yeah,
I got to meet my grandfather. My grandmother lives too far south in Peru, so I wasn't able to get to her. Yeah. So I met some of my uncles, a bunch of my cousins, my grandfather. Met a couple one aunt. Yeah, I met one aunt. Yeah. And just seeing them again, and in Peru, in the cities, they teach the kids English. So a lot of my cousins was talking to me English.
Awesome.
Yeah, man. Like I didn't grow up with grandparents. Yeah. So seeing my grandfather, I was like, oh damn! Like this man looks just like my dad. It's so weird.
How nuts is that? Right. And so I grew up with my grandparents, but I didn't really know my grandparents. Mm-hmm. The one that I had the closest relationship with which was not that close at all, was my mother's mother. Mm-hmm. My parents are both from Queens, and I remember my father's father passed when I was pretty young. I want to say like second grade, first grade. So like I couldn't build any real relationship with him, right? Then the same had happened to my mother's father, and then my father's mother, maybe when I was in like 7th, 8th grade, I think. And even then, I couldn't build a real connection. Mm-hmm. Even as an adult with my mother's mother, I wasn't around. I didn't see her, so I had no real connection with her. So I can understand and empathize. And it's just like, as a grown man, you go and you meet your father's father, or you didn't meet him, but you were seeing him again. Or did you meet him?
I met him.
You met him. So that's the first time you're meeting him at 31 years old. Mm-hmm. And to think that like you're the reason why my dad is who he is, right? Like all of that. Like that's emotional, man. That's huge.
Yeah, this is a reason why.
That's blood, even though he's a stranger, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
He's a stranger, but that's blood. Yeah, it's like your genes are in me, dude. What's up?
Yeah, like
I'm Carlos.
My dad has your characteristics, and I have both of you's characteristics.
Yeah,
it's weird, and like you're the reason why my family is so musically inclined. Like it's like you're the reason for a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
For this family, and it's like wow, like I'm finally like.
That's cool. That's powerful.
It was crazy. Yeah, it was crazy. It was a crazy experience to meet him, and he has cataracts, so he's blind.
Yeah.
So, but he's 90 years old. He gave me a hug. I feel like he's gonna crack my back. Like this man, he's still very strong. He's awesome. He's real witty. Like
at 90.
Yeah, I FaceTimed my dad while I was there.
Yeah.
And they're talking this and that, and my dad goes, "Oh yeah, like I'm happy." It's all in Spanish. Yeah. So I'm happy to see that you're there with like my last child. Yeah. He goes, "You sure it's your last child?" And like. And my dad goes, "Yeah, I have some that look like me, but I don't claim them."
Yeah, but, I don't.
So it's like this man's 90 years old. He's still real witty. Like he's
with it, man. He's still got his mind right. That's it. That's. I mean, so here's what the cool thought about that, right? Is that the hopes that you could be 90 and still have your mind right? Because if the genetics are true, right? If they stick with it, that's fantastic. That's a good sign.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a good sign. And now I'm realizing that both of my grandparents died at a fairly young age, or all of them have. Well, no, my mother's mother, lived a nice long life. But yeah, so hopefully not the case.
Yeah. And there's something. Maybe it's the food, but there's something in Peru because I believe it's my grandmother's mom. I believe it's her. I was in 5th grade when she died, and she was 104.
Wow.
Yeah, and wow. Jokingly, she says it's the potato in the pisco.
Okay.
It's their liquor.
Okay. Oh, okay. Nice.
Yeah, so it's like,
that's what it is, man. It's the booze, dude. That's it. Yeah. That's why I didn't die. That's why I lived a really long life, because I was boozing real hard. The doctor's like, nope, that's not it. Fine. That's not it at all.
But
that's funny.
So, this one next it's just different, man. It's
totally different,
very
right?
Different.
Yeah. So it's I mean, you can't help but feel spoiled, right? Like that's the immediate thought in my mind. Absolutely. Even when I have an aunt who lives in Bermuda, and you were talking about taking a shower, and it was very much that way. Like you conserve. Like in Bermuda, they basically use their roofs to catch and harness the rainwater, and then make that their daily water use, right? Mm-hmm. And the shower was basically the same thing. It's like you can't take a 10-minute warm shower. And it's funny because I was talking about this with my buddy George, and it's like one of the best things is like taking a nice hot shower.
Yeah.
Like that is such a good feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And to go to a place where you're probably pretty, I mean, although I imagine it was pretty warm.
No, Huancayo, no.
In Huancayo, because right, you said you're up in the mountains, right? Yeah. So
it's cold.
So you're kind of cold.
It's like,
so you're showering.
It's like now.
It's now. Okay,
it's
so
like, it's like now.
40s, 50s.
Yes.
So you're sitting there showering, mm-hmm. and you're hosing yourself dousing water on yourself, and now you're mm-hmm. cold, and you got to clean yourself, yep. and you're just getting yourself colder and colder each time. Yeah, so it's
and these houses are cement.
Right.
So there's no central air unit.
No.
There's no heat.
No.
There's no AC.
That's it. There's a fireplace, right? I'm sure. No, there's not even a fireplace.
It's a 3-family house. Damn. So it's just that. Like
that's it.
If it's cold, close the window. If it's hot, you open the windows. That's it.
That's nuts, man. That's a totally different world.
Yep.
Literally a totally different world. But they're living.
Yeah.
They're functioning. Your grandfather's 90 years old. Your great grandmother was 104. Mm-hmm. Like it's that liquor, man.
Yeah, I'm about to start drinking again.
Dope, dude. Right. So we'll end it on that, and I think we'll go take some pictures. Obviously, sad to see you leave, but at the same time, happy to see you leave because you're going to pursue what you're driven to do, right? I mean, I'm trying to do the same thing, right? And as much as you could sit and have this selfish sort of mindset of like, no, don't go. It's like, why not? Like, yeah, go. Like, it's funny when I was telling people that I was leaving that they're like, well, well, didn't you like? It's like, well, couldn't you talk to them about like some other type of scenario? It's like, you think I didn't think about this? You think I didn't try to like play out multiple scenarios in my brain? Like, I'm a grown ass man. Like, I would never say like, well, hey man, can't we do something here to like work? It's like, no, man, you're in your place. I'm not going to sit and try to like convince you now when you're like, yeah, I'm leaving next week.
Yeah, and that's another thing that that people like, I guess, tend to not think about.
Yeah,
it's like, you know, we obsess over this stuff.
Yep.
So it's like, trust me.
Yeah.
I've thought about every
it.
Single thing you can possibly. I've thought about this for months. I've thought about this every time I'm sitting down thinking. I've thought about this.
Right.
You know, I know the severity of this.
Right.
You know, so it's like for you to be like, oh, maybe you should work something out. It's like, nah,
man, nah.
It's done.
It's all good. Yeah, I'm gonna go do this.
Yeah,
and
you can see how it works.
And that's, and that's all you can do, right? Yeah. And learn from those experiences, take them with the new or bring them through to the new experiences, and then just keep pressing on.
Yeah,
that's it, dude. Dope, man. Thanks, dude. Let's do some photos.
Do it up.
Cool.